Welcome back. I'm Amy Jane. Now that you have acquired your watercolor materials, we are going to use them. We're going to go over some very basic things in this lesson, basic color theory. And it's all about getting your brushes out, experimenting, and seeing just how these watercolors work. If you have this kind of palette, you're going to need to set yourself up by squeezing some paint a little bit into each well. Think about the colors of the rainbow and keep your palette in order. And today as you use them, the paints here will be wet, but let them sit, let them dry, and then later on we can reuse them. Also, one of the greatest things about this method is as you use the paints, if you run out of a well, you can just re-add paint to wherever you need it. The paint tube palette setup won't apply to you if you're using any of these other options. And no matter what we're doing in the lesson, any of these paint options are perfectly usable. Now here's my complete setup. We have our palette, whatever kind you're using. A couple of brushes. I remember I recommended 2 different sizes, and having 2 is a very good thing. Your receptacles for water, jars or whatever, at least 2 of them I like because one will be dirty and one will be clean, and your paper towels. And of course, don't forget about your watercolor paper, either the block if you've got that, or the loose pages, they'll work just fine too. Last but not least, pencil, kneaded eraser. Pause if you need to, get everything in order, but let's get going. Let's do this. Okay, let's start with our pencil. Again, keeping it very basic. We make a small-ish triangle right in the center of our page. So let's start. Find on your palette, whatever colors you have available to you, find your reddest red, like your fire engine red. Grab your brush, load it up with a good amount of water, and find that reddest red. Now you are going to have some wet paints if you have just put the tubes in. Mine are dry, and this will be what will happen once you let your tubes, the wells that you've filled with the tubes set. Mine are dry, so I have to really give it a good rub. Get that water in there, reawaken it. If yours are wet, you're not going to need to do that. You're going to notice immediately, and you're not going to probably need as much water either. So if your wells are just freshly squeezed wet, then you're going to actually not rub it so much. But I'm loading up this brush with my reddest red. And I'll find a clean place on my palette to lay down, and I want to drip a little bit of that red off. Just give a little onto the palette. And now, once you've added some to your palette, just a good amount, now come in here to your page, and at the top of your triangle, we're just seeing how this works. We're gonna lay down some of that red, and this is a good strong red. Just make a little dot, a little circle. This is basic. This is just so you can get a feel for what these can do. And we're going through the color wheel. We're keeping it basic. Leave your red on your brush. Set it aside, actually hold on to it, and grab a fresh brush. If you have only one brush, give it a rinse, dry it off, give it a rinse, make sure it's clean. You don't have to dry it, but you're going to need to use a new color. 2 brushes is really good because we can keep the red onto one brush, and we can come in here with a new color. Let's go for the yellow. Find your yellowest yellow. This one is called lemon yellow. And again, if your paints are wet, don't rub it so much. Just give it a dab and see how it works. It'll be different after it dries, but these work perfectly when it dries. And if you're using some palette that's already pre-dried, then give it a good rub. Load up your brush. I don't know if you can see, there's a lot of liquid, a lot of water, and it becomes yellow very quickly. I'm gonna leave a little bit of yellow for later. We're gonna need that in a minute. I'm going to pick some more up in my bristles. I want to get a good amount out. And as a matter of fact, here, I'm actually going to dab more. I need more yellow. So I load a little bit more water in there and I rub. Okay, we're just playing around here. We're just experimenting, holding on to that red for now. And I'm loading up some yellow because I want a good amount of yellow to be on this plastic palette. So now with my yellow, come to my triangle and just add a bit of yellow there. The white of the page is the watercolors can be so challenging because the only white you have available to you is the white of the page. All right, I'm pleased with that. Now we've got our two brushes, one loaded with red, one loaded with yellow. And what we're going to now do is mix them. Yellow and red make orange. But what I want to first do is I want to make the yellowest orange I possibly can. Starting with that yellow brush, I'm going to dab just a bit of red. My cadmium red here is very, very strong. And I don't want to load too much because yellow isn't the dominant color. So get yourself a slightly orange yellow. Come into your color wheel and let's see what that looks like when we mix those. Now our next step is to make a pretty good orange. So use all that yellow that you did, take up more red, and this is going to be the very medium place where orange just isn't too red and isn't too yellow. And if you're new at this, you're going to have to do this multiple times. You will do a little triangle page like this as many times as you can. The more you do it, the better you will get at mixing and seeing how your colors interact. So I need a little more, I'm just sort of dabbing the red until I feel like I'm seeing a pretty good orange. So that right in the middle orange is going to go right there. And even I make mistakes. I think it's a bit too red, but we're going to move on. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to redo it a little later. And now I don't think I'm going to need much of this red because it's so strong, but I'm going to go to the red and I'm going to try to make the reddest orange I can. You see that red just overpowers all of that yellow. I mean, we don't even need, I might actually need more yellow here, but let's lay this one down and see what it's like. I mean, really that yellow just gets lost in this dominant red, but I'm going to, you know what? This is all about experimenting. I'm going to go for it. If I'm not happy with it, if it doesn't quite line up, we're doing it again. And see, it's a little too close to red, but it does have a touch of orange in it. I may come in here with my yellow brush since it's loaded up, and that would be mixing right on the page. And that's possible too. Again, experiment, experiment, experiment. Okay, let's clean both of these off. The side of the jar gets a little bit of that water off. Go in for the clean. I'm just getting my brushes very clean because we're gonna do two different colors. Since we got our red down, I'm going to take my smaller brush for the red since it's so dominant. And I'm going to get myself a clean red. We're going to the blue side. So get that loaded up with some red. Oh, it is very strong, very good red I have for my cadmium red. Blue, blue, blue. This is a ultramarine blue. I know that one to be a very primary color blue. I'm holding on to my red brush just like we did before. Getting blue. Blue's waking up here. I'm rubbing in my water. Don't do that if you've got already wettened paints that are freshly squeezed. So blue. Let's get ourselves a blue dot here. Now, I didn't rub it good enough. I get a lot of the white coming through the paper. And I know for a fact I need more of that blue pigment. So I'll go back in. The blue pigment didn't wake up enough. I didn't rub it long enough. And if your paints are dry, give it a good, it's the pigment and the water interacting. It's, very scientific. I'm going to see if I can't get a more prominent, strong blue color on my, and if some of the white's there, I'm going to leave it because, again, I'm experimenting. Now I've got red and blue. Let's give those a mix. Let's start with our red side. Let's take our red and start touching the blue. We want the reddest purple. And it's just going to be slightest red that goes, when blues mix, it gets a little bit darker. My red is so prominent, and let's go for it. This is going to be the reddest purple. It's just kind of dark and red, really. Now there's a big secret in the art world. Because when you take a cadmium red and an ultramarine blue, and you mix them together, you don't actually get purple. You get like a plum color. I mean, it is purple. It is a violet color. But, and so now I'm going to go for, while I'm talking, I'm going to go for the most violet-y purple that I can get. Right in the middle, right between red, right between blue. And it looks like I'm going to need a lot more red for that. But the idea is you're going to see it come out as a plum color. What we think as purple, like dollhouse purple, you're going to need to use a magenta color, or there's one called quinacridone, makes a beautiful, but it's a pink color. Quinacridone or magenta will give you, mixed with blue, will give you that dollhouse purple. But we're doing this, we're discovering our own colors. We're going to get into and do it little by little. Like I touch the red, I bring it in. I touch the red, I bring it in. I say to myself, that still looks pretty blue to me. Which, you know, I used the wrong brush because I should actually do it with the red. Let's try it over here. And you'll notice too, this is just experimenting. You'll notice this red is so strong. And I think that's why I did it with the blues. Look, I can probably not, I would need to add a lot more blue to that red. So I'm going to set my red brush aside and keep working with the purple. I can add, and I'm feeling like that's going to be, I don't want to go too far to the blue side. So I'm going to keep trying to get it right in the middle. If you go too far, it's too red all of a sudden. And then you go back to the blue, then it's too blue all of a sudden. But I'm looking like that's a pretty good violet color. So that's my right in the middle. Now, see, it's way too blue. So here we go. Here's where we can really learn. Mistakes were made, but that's the learning. That's way too blue. I'm looking at it. It's way too blue. And the trick is, take your paper towel, get rid of it right away. If it's still wet, if it dries, then you're not so much, but I'm going to get that out of there. Just dab it out. Okay? Now, how am I going to make this purple? I've got a really prominent red here. I'm going to actually, and I've got something going that's pretty blue here. So I need to bring them together right in the middle. I could load some more blue on a brush, but let's see if I can't quite just, look, I'm using both brushes. I think this is going to do it. I just need to bring in more red, and I'm feeling better about that already. It's about adding red, adding blue. You want it to be as close to the middle of violet purple as you can. It's very dark, but let's see how that one comes out. Probably still a bit too blue. We're going to go with it. Now, in order for me to go back to the blue end of that scale, I'm probably going to need to grab more blue. Unless I can make this work. Let's do it. So we're going to take our red brush, give it a rinse, because now we just want a prominent violet, blue side violet. And I'm just going to make it clean so I can go back in there and grab some more fresh blue. That's gonna be able to mix some of this. We can set, if you need to set a brush away. I like to have another jar sometimes so we can set our brush away. But look, that's gonna be blue. We can use a little of this red. Don't go too far or you'll have to start rinsing again. And that's on the blue side. That's a very blue violet color. And you can just see how things kind of form. This is so that when you need a color available to you, you know what to do. Now, I'm not happy with that. I will redo this. I'm going to get that closer to the red side. These are too close. These are too similar. But I need something that's, and I need to be able to, and I need, for time's sake, we'll move on, but I'm going to go back in. I'm going to get more red. I'm going to get more blue, and I'm going to find that middle. But let's go. Our last line to fill here is blue and yellow make green. Everybody, yellow and blue make green. All right, clean it up. Running out of space. Use our paper towel. Get us some space. You know, I'm doing this super slow. And I want you to follow right along. I'm trying to do it intentionally slow so that you can follow along and don't get too hung up on something. Sometimes you got to move on. But you're gonna figure this out, and you're gonna keep practicing even after this lesson is over, and you're gonna keep doing it. And it seems a little bit monotonous. We're not creating beautiful artworks, but this is necessary. We want yellow. Beautiful. And we want blue. Lots of pigment. The blue's harder to pick up. To make our green. Which one should we start with first? Let's start with the yellowest green. On the yellow side, which means we just take our yellow and just touch a bit of blue in. Oh, that went too far. Water has a mind of its own, but we just want a bit of yellowish green, lightest. And yellow isn't strong, so a little bit of blues goes a long way. Here we go. Yeah, we see some green happening there, but only a touch. Now we want the middle. I'm going to keep the yellow and more blue, more blue. Now I want green. I want the middle of the road green. We just mixing. Now, you might say, Amy Jane, why are you doing this? Look at your palette. You have green, a perfect sap green, it's called, on your palette. Well, we could do that, and we will do that. We are about to do that, but then we would never have the fun of the mixing, and it's the mixing that we have to practice. That's what we're doing right now. We're just practicing mixing it. So how am I gonna learn how to mix unless I take a simple color like green and try not to make it too yellow or too blue? And I think I've got it pretty close here. I'm happy with that. Let's see sometimes you have to put it down to know. I'm pretty good with it. I'm getting a lot of white on the paper, but and my paper is tilted, but I would recommend to you have your paper flat. I have it tilted for videoing purposes. But I'm happy with that green, and you can really see it prominent at the bottom where the color's running down, and it's strong. Okay, last but not least, we want a blue, touch of yellow, blue. It comes out very aqua, very oceany, but it has just a hint of yellow on the blue side. It's the bluest green you'll ever see. And I ran out of space, but that's okay. We'll learn from that. Don't touch the other ones, or it'll bleed in. Try to pick up, we got this one kind of watery, but we'll pick up as much color as we can. And again, now we're learning. This is such good learning, because we're learning about our paper and our spacing and getting it too watery or having too much pigment. I mean, look at the difference between that red, how much pigment I was able to pick up, and then these are very more transparent, so the paper is going to show through. That red's a very strong pigment. Repeat this process, practice, keep wiping away your palette, keep practicing, use your colors and experimentation. Get your paints out tomorrow and do it again. Once you've tested all your colors and you're happy and you've played around, then move on to the next thing on the video, because you're going to love it. I like to take in my clean water and dip and get my palette clean. I dip a little water on there. I'm going to use up my paper towel, give it a good rub, clean it very well. Get a clean place on the towel, more clean water. Even if it dries, it's okay. It'll come off. I don't like to waste paper towels. I use all the clean places. I fold it up in a quarter so I can unfold it and keep a clean section. But we're going to clean off our surface so we can move on and have some fun. What is art without the fun stuff, right? We can practice all day, and you should practice. It's the only way to get better, but practice can also be fun, and we're going to do something fun here. Let's grab ourselves a new clean piece. Check your paper too. On some of these loose pages, it's smooth on one side and rough on the other. For this, I'm actually going to use the rougher side. We're going to start with a fresh, clean page. Also, let me show you the watercolor block if you're using it. Because it's adhered on all sides, one of the easiest ways to release the page, find the little place that doesn't have any adhesive, take the end of your brush, try to single out the very top page, stick your brush inside, and push away. Now you've got to go around the entire. This is only if you're using the watercolor block. This is an old landscape I did in Tuscany. It was a very quick sketch on site. I was staying at a beautiful spa in Italy, in Tuscany. But you see how easy that is? With the tip of a brush that's kind of pointy, you can just slide it through, and then you're trying not to damage the page underneath. So use a nice rounded one, or be very careful not to scrape or scratch. So this is your clean page if you have a block. Now for some fun. And guess what we're gonna do? Butterflies. And here's where you can have some freedom and have some fun and see how these paints mix. So butterflies are simple, and start with your pencil. Make your butterfly wing shapes, however you want to make them. You know, our little butterfly body hangs out in the middle, and our wings are a little bit triangular. The bottom ones usually come down a bit. I like to think of kind of like a circle to make it symmetrical so that I can get them, make a roundish. But you know, this really is no big deal. Butterfly wing, they can be any shape. Butterflies come in all shapes and sizes. Because that's not what the point of this is. We're not making a perfect butterfly shape. The point of this is to grab our brush and decide and be creative. Pick a color that speaks to you and just start playing around. Now, I actually am going to get clean water before I start this. My water is very dirty. Be right back. Hit your pause. If your water's too dirty, get some clean water. Let's go. So, total freedom, total creativity. Choose a color, any color, and go for it. Just get right in there. We're testing, we're experimenting. Love that alizarin that I talked about. And what do I want to mix that with? I want a yellow. I think alizarin and yellow is going to do, and I'm going to use this yellow since we didn't do too much with that one. Put them next to each other, see how I feel about it. See if I need to do any changing. I'm liking it. I'm liking it. Now, I tend to like to keep my colors very clean, but you can start to just dab if I need more yellow, but then later on I'm going to have to clean it because now I've added a bit of alizarin to the color, which is the biggest reason why I use two brushes. If I want more alizarin and I've got a brush loaded up with alizarin, I can actually use that instead of making my alizarin dirty. But don't get too hung up on that because you can make them dirty and they will clean up. And I know a lot of artists that do that. They just go right in because it will clean up later. I want more alizarin. I'm just going to get a good mix. And then I'm going to come to my butterfly. Start at the end of the wing. Add a bit of color. I'm going to do both wings because we want our butterfly to have symmetrical wings. And I'm really going to play around with the colors and the water here. Once the page is wet, you can see how it reacts. You can see how absorbent is it. And you can let the water and the color do its thing. And I love that part about it. I'm just trying to be creative. Think of a color. Think of butterfly color. I want more yellow, but I don't want to load too much alizarin into my yellow. So I'm gonna actually, let's do this yellow. Let's get that over there and let's just see what happens. Oh, that's beautiful. That's so fun. And so we are just experimenting. We're watching what's happening when two colors mix. And what better way than on a butterfly, right? Now let's not stop there at yellow and let's try other colors. You can, again, I want you to be free here. I want you to be creative and do your thing. And I'm wondering about blue. Blue is speaking to me right now. I want to feel some blue in my life. I know I see some really baby blue butterflies. And so and here's where we're going to start we're going to talk a lot about it, but, accident there. Now this is good. Again, this is really perfect because unless it dries, when you get it close to another color, it's going to bleed in. And look, I'll just go with it, roll with it. But if I didn't want that to happen and that wasn't purposeful, then I would have to be aware of where I'm flinging my water around, okay? I love it. I love it when I make an error. And actually, I'm actually loving what's happening with those colors as well. Just watching it happen. But you can let it dry and it then wouldn't bleed as much. So if I wanted a color next to another color and I would wait, I would let it dry. Watercolors can sometimes take quite a bit of time because you have to wait. And we used hair dryers and things like that to just kind of speed up the process, but it's not don't rush it. But what I started to say before is that we have no white. We can only use the white of the paper. So if I want a light blue, I've got to think about how much water I'm adding. And I want more blue than that. I want a stronger blue. So I'm going to use less water and really rub it in. And up here, I think, and see how different that is than the light blue. But this is just my creative butterfly. It's what I want it to look like. Yours is going to be much different, but be creative and have fun. And secretly don't tell anybody, but you're actually getting a really good practice in. This is going to help your artistic watercolor ability just by doing butterflies. And you can do multiple butterflies as well. Let's see. Let's try some lamp black. Our butterfly, that is lamp black, it's called. It's got a darker, butterflies come in all colors, all spectrum of color. So just be creative. Mix colors. Get in there, dip and dab. Dabbing the color and mixing. And try to choose, make multiple butterflies too, and try to choose, I don't know if my Prussian isn't working. I'm gonna have to take, you know what? That's another thing about these wells too, is I'm gonna take that Prussian out and get some fresh stuff in there, maybe a different color. I never really used Prussian blue anyway. And I just want a hint of green there. Oh, I need more water. If I lay down a little water with no color, look what happens. It's very fascinating. Water has a mind of its own. What did I take too? I took phthalo green. Bam, right there. Be free with this, you know? Try to get your creative juices flowing. It really is quite fascinating, quite wonderful. And I want to make something super light. I just dab a whole bunch of water. And I come over it. I'm a little off on symmetry, but that's okay too. And at some point we stop. And we get a new one. And we let it dry. Come back into this after it's dried. I want you to continue to have fun. Continue to use these all week. Pick them up. And just make your little triangle. Make your colors wheel, your yellow and blue to green, and all of the things we did on the triangle. Just start playing around. Make a bunch of butterflies. Use up some of that paper. Don't be afraid. Keep experimenting. Keep playing around. We're going to delve deeper into color theory, but this is just basic. We're keeping it very basic for this first lesson, and we're getting you used to how the water and the colors work, how your brushes hold the water, how you're going to be able to manipulate them to achieve something. Have fun and join me next week.